Okay, so today is our first lesson on 4 types of commas. In English, we have the following 4 types: introducers, coordinators, inserters, and tags. So in the following few lessons, we will take a look at each different type of comma and practice the sentences. All right, so let's start with introducer comma. So what is an introducer comma? It is a comma that follows any element that comes in front of the first independent clause. So for example, if we look at the independent clauses, I plan to quit smoking. I threw away my cigarettes. I feel terrible. It is not easy to quit. I find it difficult to quit. My doctor recommended that I quit immediately, and she advised. So as you can see here, the bolded words or phrases, they come before our independent clause, and that is why we need our introducer commas. So in the first 2 examples, therefore and nervously, these are what we call conjunctive adverbs or transition words. So other words that you would often use comma after include however, nevertheless, thus, hence, additionally. There is one exception. So an exception would be then. So a lot of times when we want to start our sentence with then I opened the door, right? We wouldn't use comma, but that is a rare exception. So most of the time when you want to use a transition word to start a sentence, you need introducer comma. All right, and the next 3 examples, as a result, after 16 years of smoking and having smoked for 16 years, these are phrases, right? So if you remember, we've established that a phrase is a group of words without subject and verb. So it's not a complete sentence. So whenever you have a phrase at the beginning, you want to make sure that you'll also have an introducer comma. Okay. And next, we have something called dependent clauses. So if you remember what a dependent clause is, it is something with subject verb, but it is not a sentence because the dependent clause has something called a subordinator in front, like because, right? So when we have dependent clause before our independent clause, we would also need an introducer comma. So if I decide to reverse the order, my doctor recommended that I quit immediately because I have a chronic cough. By changing the order of my independent and dependent clause, I can now remove the introducer comma because my dependent clause comes after. All right. And last but not least, whenever we have a direct quotation in front, like stop smoking today, we also need an introducer comma followed by our independent clause, she advised. And speaking of which, I have noticed a mistake in the example sentence. So if you take a look at this sentence, there's something wrong. I'm not sure if anyone remembers, but I said that a phrase at the beginning of a sentence would be a modifier that modifies the subject after the comma. So in this case, who would be smoking after 16 years? It would actually be a person. So instead of using it is not easy to quit, the better, or actually the correct way would be I find it hard to quit. Your subject needs to be find, actually. But That is it for our introducer comma. So we use it whenever we have a word, a phrase, a dependent clause, or a direct quotation before our independent clause.